how can I be mindful with young people that don't want to connect with me as a practitioner? Or says, have you got any thoughts about that? That if
Mm.
maybe the child is struggling to connect to another person, and
Mm. Well, I think that's a story in itself, really. I mean, obviously, it's always so much easier for practitioners if children want to connect with them and want to talk with them, and
mm,
it makes our job so much easier. But just as many children find that difficult, and so I think an approach is to really be very accepting of that. So if I've got a child that doesn't want to connect with me, I really would just accept that as it is and start to just try and think about, well, what happens around lack of connection? So I would probably say to a child, well, it's really okay if you don't want to connect, but I'm still going to keep checking if and when you might want to, because you might change your mind about that. So, but it's really okay for now that you don't want to do that. And I would probably try to explore and perhaps explain to the child or young person that, I'm there to help them have a good experience. And so I try to help them understand I might explore a little bit about their situation. So I would try and connect with their carers. I would talk with them about that and say, look, can I talk about how you're getting on with the people who are caring for you, and how your day is, and how your schooling is, and do you mind if I do that? And I don't mind if you don't talk to me, but do you mind if other people talk to me about you? So just to kind of be encouraging. I think it's incredibly discouraging if children don't want to talk to you, and
yeah,
it's never personal,
mm,
um, but it is always difficult. And I think the last thing you want to do is try and make that happen, because it just makes it worse. And
yeah. So
but
in kind of pushing the child and saying, "Oh, I will connect with you. I will
it
make
was,
this happen."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I'm always very mindful of the kind of motivational interviewing approach to working with children and young people, and that is that if there's a barrier in place, then drop lower. But if a child can't jump 6 foot, then drop the barrier down to 4'6".
right. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
or perhaps you could put that in meters for me. I don't know, but
I don't think I
don't
could.
well, if you can't jump high, then lower the barrier, and
Mm,
um, but always but don't let go of your willingness to be connected to anything that child might want to bring with you. And so you could also try, whilst not being forceful, but you could also try other means of communication. So you may be thwarted on that, but you could try. So I sometimes say to children and young people, well, maybe you have a piece of music that you'd like to bring along that tells me about the things that you like, or maybe you have a story that would tell me something about you. But also, you may not want to do that either. But I think often children, perhaps they don't connect because they're not used to it,
yeah.
or it's not familiar to them, or it's not safe for them, and that people really therefore haven't helped them to to connect. So,
Yeah. So they might
so
be learning that skill of connecting and
they might
sharing their
be,
experience for the first
yeah,
time. Yeah, like
they
it's so natural
really,
for us as therapists, but it's
really,
yeah,
absolutely, and absolutely, and they could be learning that. So I think the thing is not to let go of the possibility that a connection is made. One of the things I say in the book is that, and I think it's the axioms of Watzlawick, and I hope I'm saying that the right way, but he was a researcher who said that, um, you know, even not communicating is a communication. Everything is a communication.
mm,
So coming along and not connecting with a therapist is a communication, and just to try and understand, what that is, without being overly intrusive. If children really aren't wanting to connect, because there may be very good reasons for that.
we've also had a question about kind of the other end of that continuum, which is like, is there a point where you might think, right, we need to not work together, like the connection isn't possible or it's just not working?
Well, I think, um, I suppose you'd have to think quite carefully about that. And I think if you got to the point as a therapist where you thought things were not working, then you'd really want to explore whether that was not working for you or not working for them, because sometimes you can struggle on, can't you? And you can think, oh my goodness, I can't see what we're doing here. But the child or the child's family may think there really is something very important happening there. So I think you probably have to, first of all, just explore all possibilities around that. And again, looking at it systemically. So, what's the child thinking about whether or not it's working? And if they are absolutely hating coming to your room and working with you, well, I think there's probably very good cause for saying, hey, oh gosh, I really am not here to make this miserable, and I really don't want to force you to come here. Um, but I'm still very willing to think with you about things that you might want help with if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really important, catching. We might be thinking, oh, I don't think there's anything happening. Is it
Mm,
worthwhile? But actually, from the young person or the child's point of view,
mm,
it could be really life changing for them, the
yeah.
possibility of connection. And
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes as therapists we can struggle through sessions
yeah,
with children who find communication difficult. We can struggle through and think, oh my goodness, but they are actually doing they are finding something useful.
yeah.
We need to kind of explore what that might be. Really.
Well, I'm really glad you've said that, because I think it catches a question that's just come in from the chat room about that tension between wanting to just sit and hear the child
Mm.
and listen to them, and how much do we need to know about maybe like the scenery, as you're saying,
Yeah.
what has been the child's history, what
Mm.
surrounds them in the context that we're working with them in terms of other professionals. And what, I wonder
Well,
what your experience would tell you in terms of that tension. Or,
well, I think it's a really good question. And I think, it doesn't matter where you are in this work, you will always be weighing that up. It doesn't matter whether you're new to working with children or whether you're, moderately experienced or very experienced. We are always weighing the same things up.
right, yes.
So I think if you've got, we've already established, if you happen to have a child in the room who's able to talk to you about their experience, that's you're really winning for a kick-off.
Yes.
And you really do want to listen to everything that they're saying to you and work with them on that. But I think you have to weigh in the balance, the age of the child and their ability to represent their experience
Yeah.
and the developmental stage of the child and who the people are around them
Yeah.
and where that child is in relation to you understanding more about their lives. And I think you have to talk with them about that. So I will, if I think I need to know more, I will say to children, I'd really like to try and understand a bit more. Would you mind if I try to talk to somebody to understand a little bit more about, something, some aspect, or even some aspect that perhaps a child can't remember? So
Yeah.
children don't always remember their entire history. Um, so I think you've got to really, really take it very carefully and contract each layer of it so that you're not, overwhelming the child's autonomy in the session
Yeah.
because that's terribly important and it's a brilliant achievement. And to have a young person in a session in an autonomous way is absolutely an achievement, and you don't want to spoil that in any way.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, having built that trust
mm,
with a young person in the midst of all the difficulties that they're
yeah,
experiencing,
yeah,
so
you don't.
valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil it. And I think that really did dedicate in the book the pentagon shape with the sort of five aspects and the central core. Um, I think that the very first level was the child and all the different aspects to take into consideration. And I think it is an evaluative job for us.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
do I need to focus on a one-to-one session, or am I going to need to take on board more? And I think the other thing, of course, is actually keeping people out of the sessions.
Right, okay,
You know,
just as hard then.
sometimes you have a whole troop of people who are, perhaps
Mm.
got an investment, and sort of like closing the door and saying, no, this child needs space. So we are having to evaluate that all the time. I don't think there's an easy answer to it, except to say, do take the time to evaluate it very, very carefully, both, for your client, but for yourself. And also, in obviously supervision is very helpful for that too, because jumping the gun, getting information over a child's head could be quite destructive
Yeah.
in terms of their autonomy.
So to think really carefully about how we engage with those other people who are in the
Yeah,
child's
yeah,
context as well
yeah,
is really
yeah.
important.